With 41 days to go for the T20 World Cup, Pakistan has lost to the so-called D category New Zealand side and who have leveled the series 1-1. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host, Faris, and we have with me after a few days, Faraz Qasim. Faraz, good to have you back. It's been a while. The so-called BC team of New Zealand has won a match. How are you feeling?
Assalamu alaikum, friends. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I don't know how am I feeling because we're supposed to be winning this game, but I was not surprised that we lost the game because the approach of our team is so 90s still. Like we're still playing in the 90s. It's just
Yeah.
baffles me how insecure our team is, man.
Yeah. So before getting into it, I'll quickly do the 33-second summary of the game. So again, Pakistan was put in by New Zealand. We had a 50-run power play. We looked pretty good start, but from over seven to the next 7 overs, we scored a strike rate of 7, and we finished. We were at 105 for 2 at the end of the 13th over. Thanks to Shadab and a little bit of Irfan Niazi, we shaved some blushes. Finished on 178, but generally 178 for 4 would just seem like an underpass road regardless of where you're playing. And when New Zealand started, they were 53 for 2 in their power play, a wicket each for Abbas and Naseem. But from there on, Chapman just kind of bed in. We couldn't get a single wicket. And with 60 to get in 6 overs, Shaheen and Naseem went for 40 in the next two, which effectively killed off the game. 42-second summary, so a little lower. Uh, where do we start? I mean, I guess starting off at the top, right? So it's interesting, right? Because very often when you're doing a review of a game, right, sometimes the focus becomes the innings which people think made the biggest difference. And if you watch Babar's post-match interview, I think he was hinting at perhaps the bowling plans were the issue. I have a different view, and also I think my view is I think this is what about what happened in the first innings. Where do you think which half is the one that's really problematic for you?
Honestly, both halves were problematic, but looking at the big picture, the first half was definitely problematic. The reason being, I was listening to the commentary, and somebody said during the commentary that on this particular ground, nobody has ever won an international T20 game bowling second. So when Pakistan went into bat, they knew they had their work cut out for them. And considering what we saw in the last couple of PSLs, too, last year was I think
Yeah.
240 plus was chased down against Peshawar. So given the history and given everything, we should know this is our home ground. It's not like
Yeah.
something we've just
Mhm.
somewhere we've just landed. We didn't know what's going to happen. So batting was definitely the biggest downside of today's game. And once we go into it, I mean, we'll go into the nitty-gritty of it, but there's a lot of things to unpack today, Faris.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, even if you like, my view is that regardless of who you're playing and where you're playing, if you're finishing at 178 for 4 in a T20, there's something wrong. But if you only lost 4 wickets, you should end up with more runs, right? So that, especially when you've barely lost any wickets in the power play, etc. So I think even if you look at the opposition and the conditions, 178 for 4 just doesn't sound right. It feels like you left some out there.
The problem is just not in 178 for 4. Problem is in the approach. If you go back a few weeks ago when we were discussing, I think we were discussing post PSL when there was 4 of us and
Yeah.
discussing the squads. When we talked about Usman, sorry, when we talked about Usman, my point of view was that he's a decent player. He's probably not he won't as be as good in the international scene. However, we won't even give him the right opportunity. And even then, I told you guys that Babar and Rizwan will not move. Even if it's a C team or a D team, we will make sure that he plays at 4 or 5. We will waste him and then we'll discard him, saying that he's not good enough. If you not give him the right opportunity, Babar, like this series, please, this series is not to win 5-0. It was never meant to be like that. This is to understand where we are before the World Cup, what resources we have. We know what Babar can do. We know what Rizwan can do. So we should be we should be putting forward Usman up front. We should be putting Irfan at number 4. He's not a big hitting finisher. He's somebody who can carry the innings at a good
Yeah.
momentum and the middle overs. So if you're not using your resources correctly, the reason why, what's the reason? Because Babar, I love him. Rizwan, I love Rizwan. Big fan of him. They're both so, I don't know what's the environment within the dressing room, but they're both so insecure. They just don't want to let go of their spot for even just one game, because if somebody else performs, they know that they I mean, they should know this. They should know that they are secure. But they feel like if they give somebody a spot and they end up scoring, they
Yeah.
might take away their spot from
Yeah.
the World Cup. So that the insecurity of the seniors is the biggest problem.
I mean, to be honest, Umar and I spoke about this after yesterday's game on the show as well, right? We spoke about what's the point of Osman if he's batting at 4, and especially because even if you look at his record, his average, there's a serious drop off if he's batting outside of the top 3 before that. And the other thing also is, if you the way I see Osman fitting into the plans is probably not in the 11 but in the squad. So he needs to be the backup to the top 3, right? So if you have him in the squad, that's how you need him playing in those positions to be basically have a sense of what he's like. But I guess if you drill down a little bit in today's game and look at the batting, especially, we were 54 in 6 overs, and we were 105 in 13 overs. In the next 7, we made 51 runs. I think the middle overs of T20 is where the bulk of the scoring needs to happen. And we initially had Babar and Rizwan playing at that strike rate. Then Usman Khan, I mean, he didn't survive for that long. But I think that is essentially what killed us. And if I drill down a bit more, I mean, Usman Khan, he's new. Usman Khan is new. He only played 6 balls. Fair enough. But I think Babar was a bit slow, and Rizwan was particularly slow. Rizwan scored 22 of 21 or something, which doesn't make any sense at all in a T20 game, especially when you come one down at a 50-run platform.
See, Babar and Rizwan, for me, they now come as a package deal. So I look at him, always I look at him what both of them did together. So if you combine both of their stats, so Babar played 29 and Rizwan played 21. In total, they faced 50 balls, 50 deliveries, and they scored 59 runs.
Yeah.
So 50 deliveries is essentially just less than half of the innings. So both of them consumed half of the innings for 59 runs. That is completely and utterly unacceptable. And then you're expecting Usman, who's, as you said, as we just that he's not even a number 4. You're expecting Usman, who's used to playing the new ball, who's used to playing within the circle. You're expecting him to come down at number 4 and start hitting sixes right from the go on a spinner, which he's not used to. Then you're expecting Irfan Khan Niazi, who's trying to make his way into the team. Another thing I would just like to go back when we were discussing teams and players, and so the reason I said even back then was taking Usman as an example. Like if a player succeeds in franchise model, you expect him to do the same. He will never be the same in terms of intent, because in a franchise model, he knows he's going to get next 5-10 games. If he fails today, day after tomorrow, there's another game. Day after tomorrow, there's another game. But if Irfan Khan, somebody or Irfan Khan, Usman Khan is playing today, he does not know if he's playing in the next game or ever again for Pakistan if he fails today. So that's the biggest difference. So that's the reason these guys should be playing at their specialized position rather than our seniors hogging that and making 59 or 50 balls. It's just disgraceful, man. Utterly disgraceful.
And what's ironic is Shadab came in and played a very good knock, right? Like literally saved the team blushes, but he didn't really save us, but you know what I mean. And what's ironic is I feel like Shadab, the best time to bat for Shadab probably is between over 7 and 13, which is where we really struggle today, right? So I think our sense of, we discussed this, I think, at length in the selection show, right? Where who bats where, like Shadab for Pakistan, somehow they'll think of him as a death ball player, but he's actually somebody who does really well in the middle overs. We've seen that for Islamabad United over the last 5 years now, I think. So I think, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind where we lost the game. It was between over 7 and over 13. I think that how we played that game was.
But the sad part is, it's not something that just happened today. It's been happening for the last 4 years, 5 years. So repeating this, I mean, making mistake once is human, right? But repeating the same mistake over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So we're basically bordering on insanity right now.
And you know what, the point you made is very true, right? Pindi, what happens in the Pindi in the PSL, we all know that. Even the internationals know that. Even Chapman knows that, right? So when I saw 178 only, and I was like, hang on, I mean, have I been watching too much IPL, or is this a really low score? And 178 Pindi mein jahan pe PSL mein humne kya chase hote hue dekha hai, and these guys have all been playing there. So yeah, I mean, I never thought we had enough. And then I guess coming on to the bowling, so
one thing before we move on, Faris, right? So this again, this was something off the record, but I'll just share what I can. During the World Cup of 2019, 2023 last year, the 50-over World Cup. I spoke to somebody. It was during the World Cup. I spoke to somebody who was part of the Pakistani setup in India, and there was a game. I don't remember which game, so I spoke to him after the game. They were in India at the time, and he said, so somebody young, I don't remember who, so somebody young played well and won the game. So I was speaking to him, and he said, "You know what? It's not the youngsters I'm worried about. It's the senior players who just don't are not up with the game. They don't like when we make a plan, they're not agreeing to it, and they just want to do what they want to do, and that's the biggest problem." I spoke to them after the World Cup, and they said the same thing. You know what? They're like, if we can either get the players, senior players, up with the program or get rid of them, unless we do that, we will never be able to win anything.
And I think it's going to go back to the batting again, what you said, right? So we spoke about this in the selection show, and this is something I had a view, and I think it was quite, we all kind of agreed on. I said, if you're playing Rizwan at 3, that's fine for me. But if you're losing the first wicket after the power play, then Rizwan does not come in. Then we go straight up
Yep.
to the next guy, right? And today was the ideal opportunity to try that out, right? I mean, like you said, we know what Rizwan's going to get. In fact, we got less than what we know we're going to get, because we got 20 of 21 or something ridiculous like that. But
And just imagine if Rizwan hadn't gotten retired hurt, we probably would have ended up at 160,
yeah,
165.
yeah. I guess we have to talk about the good as well. I think Shadab, I know you'll be happy to talk about that, but Shadab again had a good game with the bat. 40 of 20. Had he been around for longer, maybe could have, but it was, I think, a decent knock by him.
Faris, I'm happy. Yeah, I know, I love Shala, but the point is, the whole exercise of this series is not to learn what we already know. The
Yeah,
exercise of series is to learn what
yeah,
we can do other than what we've been doing. So we've not been able to basically get anything. What was 91 was the target in the last game. We should have tried to get it in 8 overs.
yeah.
That should have been the target in the last game. Babar and Rizwan and the whole thing happened again. So yeah, I'm happy with Shadab's performance. I love him, but the fact we didn't learn anything. We should be
What
learning
did
new things about new.
what did you make of Irfan Niazi today and the last game for that matter?
Yeah, Irfan Niazi की दो चीजें. And number one, if you listen to the commentators, he looks so well put together. He looks so organized and composed when he's facing every ball. He never loses his shape. What he did today, 20, 30 of 20 balls, is very decent, is the best word I would say.
Yeah,
Nothing extraordinary.
and
But
also he
the
had to
thing is,
catch up. By the way, he was a bit slow at the beginning.
what I said earlier, Fariz, he cannot, or even for that fact, Usman Khan cannot play the same game they play in franchise cricket, because they know if they play an idiotic or rash shot and they get out, they may never play for Pakistan again.
Yeah.
So they don't have that assurance. So and Irfan is not a gung ho player anyways. He's somebody who should be playing at like number 3 or number 4, where he has the opportunity to build the innings, and he will do a better job of 22 of 21. He will probably be at 45 of 32, something like
Yeah.
to that effect. So yeah, it's not his forte to he's not a big hitter. He's not somebody who will come in and
Yeah.
score a 15 on 45. No, that's not his
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned something about the point of the series, right? And that brings me to the bowling. So before we even get into how we bowled, my view was that, look, Shaheen and Naseem's spots in the 11 are quite, at this point, are generally quite locked. And Amir is the guy who's made a comeback. So we should probably give Amir as many games as possible, even though, like, I wasn't a big fan of him coming back. But if you brought him back, give him as many games as possible and rest one of Naseem or Shaheen, both of whom have also been very injury prone. So 2 games in 2 days. But I didn't understand the selection of leaving Amir out. What do you make of the selection before we even get into how they bowled?
Yeah, selection to baad mein aati. Like, just look at the people sitting in the Wahab Riaz. He was a chair of the selection committee. Now he's what, senior team manager, something like that, a
Yeah.
ridiculous role. So यार, जब decision makers आपके सामने वो बैठे होंगे, so how can you even like and try to understand the rationale with their decision making? So if the decision makers are like that, so I don't try to find rationale in their decisions. But Shaheen, like 2 days ago, on the when there were two deliveries bowled in the first T20, and we talked about it, and I told you that this one delivery of Shaheen, that everybody, there was a Twitter space uh, of people I know, my friends, they were doing a space. They talked for 2 hours about that one ball, and I didn't participate in that
And
discussion.
like
And
you
I
said, Shaheen is back was the title.
Yes, Shaheen is back. And this is, they were comparing it to KL Rahul delivery. They were comparing it to the Chris Lewis 92 World Cup delivery of Wasim Akram.
Oh, wow.
And I was just baffled. I was like, and that's what I told you later. I was like, this one ball is going to cause her more harm than any good. And that's basically what happened, because we have with the Shaheen back brigade and everything. Shaheen say, yeah, like what Shaheen, जितनी जल्दी हम ये बात मान लें that the 2021 Shaheen is not coming back. So the better it will be for us. So that Shaheen has gone somewhere. He's not coming back anytime soon, unless he I don't know, he does something really special in the academy and spend some time. So that Shaheen is gone. The thing is, Amir, 100% agree with you. हम आमिर को लेकर आए हैं, regardless of if you and I had reservation, anybody had, he's there. So now that he's there, so we have to utilize him. और उसको national, उसने खुद बोला पहले मैच के बाद उसका इंटरव्यू सुनो, he said that it's a very different challenge playing with the star on your chest, because franchise cricket is an entirely different ball game altogether. So we need to get him used to it. Shaheen and Naseem are, we know again what we again could get. Shaheen, Naseem, I was surprised got hit around, but Shaheen, I was not surprised at all. Just cards on the table. In the second half of the New Zealand team, Manchester United were playing a game as well, and which was, it's a whole different story altogether. So I was watching that on the main. I put the Pakistan game on my phone, and my kids are, so and every time I would look back at the Pakistan game, I would turn around and the chokka, the chakka. I was like, what the hell? So that's how they were treating us. So bowling was extremely disappointing. And what's his name? Abrar. I think Abrar did pretty well. He's not he's not penetrative as we thought, but he's still doing his job pretty well.
So I think as far as the Pakistan 15 was concerned, for the World Cup is concerned, and now the series, I feel like one of the bright lights for me has been Abrar. Even today, even though he didn't get a wicket, I think he had enough mystery, but they weren't really able to take him on as such. And I think he ended up with I think the best figures also. He gave 28 runs in his 4 overs or something like that. But I think Abrar was Abrar I think was good for sure. I think, and then if you look at the game, so I mean Chapman kind of took it. I wouldn't say took it easy, but I think it got to the point where with 60 of 36. Normally 60 of 36 and with 8 wickets in hand, you'd think the batting team has a very good shot. But given that this was the New Zealand B team, there was like, okay, fine, Pakistan will clearly pull this off. And that's where we had 2 game-changing overs. I think Shaheen went for 17, Naseem went for 23, which completely, I guess, killed off the game. Now, Naseem has obviously not played for Pakistan for the last 6 months now. He came back in the PSL, had a pretty good PSL. To be honest, at this point, I'm just glad to see Naseem running in and bowling and etc. Right, like the performance kuch bhi ho, because of his injury, and I think given the potential, I think he has. But he's had a couple of not so good games now. I think if you look at his figures, etc. And I think batsmen have taken him on, and it's kind of come off. How do you look at Naseem so far?
I'll put it very simply. I'm with Naseem. I'm not worried just bit, 0%, because firstly, good and bad days होते हैं. देखो, मेरा एक belief in life in general, हर चीज में, I believe more in process rather than exceptions. So if your process is correct, you're going to get more success rather than in the short term exceptional victory. So Naseem has a process worked out. He knows how, in that process he will have bad days, but in the long run he will always. Shaheen, on the other hand, he's just hoping to have an exceptional delivery come in and then get the wicket. If that doesn't work out, he gets flicked on, and so that's the difference between Shaheen and Naseem right now. The only reason I say that as well is like, कंपेयर नहीं करना चाहिए, बट आज सिर्फ आज का मैच था, आई थिंक कौन सा था, KKR वर्सेस IPL, I know we don't discuss, but उसमें I didn't see the game, I saw the stats later. Mitchell Starc 3 overs 55 runs. Mitchell Starc 3 overs 55 runs. So in a game where like things are so heavily stacked against the bowler, so no matter if it's Mitchell Starc or if it's Naseem Shah, पिंडी का ग्राउंड जहाँ पर 240-250 चेज हो जाता है, उसमें Naseem is allowed to have a bad day. But the thing is, if the bad day turns into a bad season, that's when we start to worry. But bad days here and there, I don't think we need to worry.
I mean, like I said, this is the first 2 games after 8 months, so I'm more than happy just to see him bowl. In fact, I would have been happy to have for him rest out today for that matter, and come back maybe later for the last game.
Shaheen has had 2 bad years. Naseem probably has had two bad games. So that's the biggest difference right now. Yeah. Khuda na khasta, if he ends up having 2 bad years, then we should be worrying.
Yeah. I think before we wrap up, one more point. So news here is that Azam Khan has had an injury and he's out of the series. I think when we saw footage of Kakul, and I think we had a show, I think Umair Kazina had a show about this, we were talking about how I was quite worried to see Naseem Shah, a bowler, jumping off 6 feet, and Saim Ayub carrying somebody. And Azam Khan, we know, does not need to climb a mountain to play for Pakistan, right? Sure, he's got his fitness concerns, I get it. But why put these guys through stuff which they will never really need to do? And we don't know what's caused the knee injury, right? But given that the guy has climbed a mountain, given his fitness level, it could easily be coming from that. What do you make of, I guess, his injury and like how it fits in with everything we've been doing so far?
Yeah, the whole Kakul, and I hope you indulge me for a second. So this whole Kakul thing, right? So it reminded me of this joke one of our teachers told us कि हमारी क्लास में एक लड़का होता था, वो बातें बहुत करता था, काम नहीं करता था। उसको उन्होंने उसको एक एग्जांपल दिया था, कहते हैं एक दफ्तर होता है, एक ऑफिस होता है, उसमें एक जो जो बंदर होता है ना, उनका जो जीएम होता है, तो जो सीईओ होता है वो जीएम को बोलता है कि भाई ये प्रोजेक्ट पूरा करना। कहता है मैं भाग दौड़ करो जितना। कहता है अच्छा, उसको 2 दिन तक देता है, 2 दिन बाद वापस आता है, कहता है कि क्या हुआ। कहता है नहीं हुआ। तो कहता है अब क्या कर। कहता है मैं भाग दौड़ कर रहा हूँ। कहता है क्या करो। कहता है मैं यहाँ से वहां भाग रहा हूँ, वहां से यहाँ भाग रहा हूँ, यहाँ से वहां भाग रहा हूँ, वहां से यहाँ भाग रहा हूँ। बेसिकली भाग रहा हूँ, लेकिन उससे कुछ होना नहीं है। देयर इज नो रिजल्ट, देयर इज नथिंग इज गोइंग टू बी अचीव फ्रॉम दैट स्टूपिड एक्सरसाइज ऑफ
Yeah,
running from here there to there, because there was nothing productive coming out of it. So this was just an exercise for the optics, the
yeah,
whole काकुल thing.
yeah,
उसकी वजह ये भी थी ना, पर इसके नए नए चेयरमैन साहब आए, देखो मैं डिसिप्लिन में बड़ा बिलीव करता हूँ, मैं इनको काकुल भेज रहा हूँ। अगेन दिस इज नॉट द फर्स्ट टाइम वी हैव डन द काकुल थिंग,
yeah,
but I think it was a fruitless exercise, and it was just something for the optics.
yeah,
And you or anybody else, all of us were right to have those fears of players coming back. वो तो अगर आप आजम अभी सिर्फ इंजर्ड हुआ है अभी तक, मैं अभी इज द की वर्ड, सो आई थिंक वी शुड स्टिल कट आवर लॉसेस एंड शुड बी
yeah,
हैप्पी विद इट। मुझे लगता है कि इसकी और ज्यादा
yeah.
रेमिफिकेशंस होंगी अभी।
Yeah. And let's see. I mean, I think given what we spoke about, I feel like Azam, in spite of fitness concerns, given where we're playing the World Cup, is definitely, and given the role he plays, I think is a contender for the squad. But let's hope he can recover soon. Uh, I guess before we wrap up, by those of you watching, if you have a view on what went wrong for Pakistan today and whether you think the issue with more with the bowling or the batting, please leave a comment. Faraz, next match Thursday ko hai Lahore mein. We have 2 more games, both in Lahore, Thursday and Saturday, I believe. What changes would you like to see in the 11 or the batting order for that matter?
Acha, I will ask you again. What changes do you think I would like to see, or what changes I think will be made? So there are
First,
two
answer
key.
what you would like, and then you can also, if you want talk about what you think they'll do.
I would like to see Usman pushed up again and play as an opener. Babar dropped out of the team. Irfan playing number 4 or number 3. And other than that, changes. Yaar, Bahir say Amir should come in. Shaheen should sit out. Naseem should sit out. And I think कौन है हमारे पास Zaman है.
Zaman hai.
Even though I'm pretty sure Zaman is not going to make it to the World Cup, but just for the sake of not burning out Naseem, I would like to send Zaman come in for Naseem and Amir for Shaheen. And middle order में भी मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा कौन है हमारे उस bench पे.
I mean,
Middle order में
Fakhr
कौन
is
है?
in the squad. I think batsman में तो इमाद वसीम है जिसको हमने नहीं खिलाया अभी तक. उसामा मीर है वैसे.
इमाद अबरार को आपने देख लिया ना, अबरार कर रहा है अच्छी फॉर्म। अबरार को एक ब्रेक दो एक गेम के लिए।
I mean, I would say
इमाद
आप
को आप
शादाब को भी बिठा के इमाद को ला सकते हैं for that matter.
ये शादाब को भी बिठा के आप ला सकते हो। शादाब अगेन, जैसे मैंने पहले बोला, वी नो व्हाट शादाब कैन
Yeah.
डू, वी नीड टू नो व्हाट इमाद कमिंग बैक शुड बी एबल। सो इमाद नंबर 1, आमिर नंबर 2, जमान नंबर 3 एंड नंबर 4 आई थिंक फखर की, क्योंकि फखर को हम जो मैच विनर बोलते हैं, आई मीन उसको अभी थोड़ा सा अगर आपको गेम कॉन्फिडेंस देना है, सो ब्रिंग हिम इन। दिस इज द बेस्ट टाइम टू ट्राई हिम आउट। न्यूजीलैंड वर्सेस की वन ऑफ हिज फेवरेट टीम्स टू मैसेकर।
By the way, yeah, makes sense. Okay, and what changes do you think they'll make now? Going back to
बाबर और रिजवान शायद इंजर्ड हो गया है, तो शायद रिजवान बैठ जाए, बाबर तो नहीं बैठेगा। तो आई थिंक रिजवान की जगह फखर आएगा, और शाहीन नसीम में से दोनों नहीं बैठेंगे, एक बैठेगा। और आई थिंक दो चेंजेस होंगी, तो फखर आएगा और नसीम शाहीन में से एक बैठेगा, आमिर आएगा। आई थिंक दैट्स अबाउट इट।
given how last question now, given how Abrar is bowling, I personally am comfortable if we go big on Abrar, and Abrar is the third spinner along with Imad and Shadab in the squad. Would you like to see Osama get a go in the series at some point? 2 matches रह गए बस अब.
Yeah, I mean, just to try him out. Like in right now, I don't feel like Osama will be able to get a spot in the World
Yeah,
Cup, even though he was the highest wicket taker. But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if we should.
I mean, it can just अगर उसने perform कर दिया तो और problem ही हो जाएगी. So I'm okay with Abrar getting 4 games and Osama does not getting one. But let's see what they go with. Okay, good stuff, Faraz. Thank you for being on.
Always a pleasure.
For those of you watching, we'll be back after the 4th T20 on Thursday evening. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.